Child molesters, rapists, bullies, and evildoers all have one thing in common. They all rely on their victim's weakness, lack of self-awareness, and a lack of support. The victims of these perpetrators also share common and like characteristics in that the fear of being ignored, humiliated, or unprotected is the primary drive of why we all, in some way, are imprisoned by our own lack of full and total consciousness. The physical act of these inhumane activities is how most victims are awarded the necessary attention of support in the form of legal charges that can be filed against the perpetrators if they can in some way be proven beyond a reasonable or shadow of a doubt. Society has a way of banding together in general to protect those who are threatened by and or are actual victims of these inhumane acts. The more vulnerable someone is, the more likely they are to receive the necessary attention and support. The elderly in particular, followed by those who are mentally unable to protect or defend themselves. Children, women, and even those who may have trouble expressing themselves clearly are considered the low-hanging fruit and or those who actually need to be protected. Are the stories that involve victims and perpetrators who fit all of these conditions and scenarios. Many of the stories are considered high profile and are brought to the public's eye oftentimes by force. Watching the news, reading through the papers, movies, and documentaries all expose most of the high profile cases and actually get the necessary attention and oftentimes even the justice necessary to help deter the perpetrators, as well as encourage potential victims that there is or may be hope. These stories and cases are considered normal and common because we see them and hear about them daily. However, all of these headlines are only a fraction of the circumstances that actually see the light of day regarding exposure, attention, and or justice. The others are what I believe is what gives temperature to society in general as it relates to the rhythm of how society in general proceeds. The mental and emotional mindset of everyone sets the tone of the world system as a whole. I am convinced that greater than 80% of the average population suffer in silence. Most people that I've encountered who occupy jobs or on a staff and or in a workplace report different levels of unhappiness as it relates to the balance of either their qualification, their pay scale, promotions, and cliques that are common amongst workplace environments. People go and come for years, live through or work through conditions that are less favorable for them in exchange for forms of financial security. People that participate in any form of unhappiness and or dissatisfaction in their common and everyday lives have been identified with those consistent with subconsciously digging their own graves, as constant unfulfillment naturally creates the moisture that eventually turns into deadly mold. In speaking for myself, I have experienced countless examples of living in fear. Even as a child, I was taught that we are not given the spirit of fear. However, as hard as it is to admit, I have lived the majority of my life highly concerned about not being heard, understood, or protected. I recalled recently being asked, "What are you running from?" or "What are you running to?" That question triggered a flashback of my entire life as I thought of the images I recalled from the tragedy I witnessed on 9/11. I watched people jump from tall floors of buildings to escape a form of danger with the belief that a better chance of survival would be falling hundreds of feet. Subconsciously, my answer to that question would be the safety and protection all human life naturally seeks from the deepest part of our beings. From the most hardened criminal to the most innocent newborn infant, the desire and comfort for protection is natural and instinctual. Freedom of expression has to be included in the new hierarchy of needs. Therapists rely on research that supports avenues that opens opportunities for people to communicate. Interviewers, interrogators, investigators, counselors, therapists, and first responders all rely on testimonies and information that the freedom of expression creates to bring closure and direction. I believe my childhood experiences created an adult who was forced to strengthen my ability to express myself from the very fear of not being heard, listened to, or justified. I have a strong sense of pride in my ability to listen, hear, and understand and process information that I observe and investigate myself with a non-biased filter. The idea that truth and transparency can be overshadowed by technicalities, persuasiveness, and even influence has become the rudest awakening in my reality for me personally. At this very moment of expressing myself, I am overwhelmed with the reality that my freedom of expression and thirst for knowledge and information could be silenced at my expense or to my disadvantage. I am angry and frustrated as I hunger and thirst continuously for the freedom of expression and the openness of my vulnerability to be received with even the basics of respect and consideration. As I maneuver through my own personal experiences, I sometimes feel as if I am witnessing the grave digging and mold that I mentioned earlier, as it relates to my own personal experiences. Even if I am unable to save myself from what could very well be internal self-destruction based on the inability or refusal to control my own thoughts, perhaps my writing will bring awareness to someone that can indeed find justification in truth and transparency. The Bible often speaks of the strength found in struggles, and we have all personally in some way experienced others or ourselves get through and over trying times. However, the choice to embrace that fire that's guaranteed to consume us, or take the leap of death that gives us a possible chance, will forever be the mystery around what we all at some point run from or run to.